Welcome to the World Art Now podcast, exploring the world through the material culture of its people, in association with Michael Backman Limited.
I'm here with Dr. Fiona Kerlogue. Fiona is one of the world's leading experts on the batiks of Indonesia, and most particularly, she probably is the world expert on batiks from Jambi in South Sumatra. Between 2001 and 2018, Fiona was Deputy Keeper of Anthropology at London's Horniman Museum, and she had special responsibility there for the Asian and European collections. Currently, she is a research associate at the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London, here in London, obviously. And most recently, she is the author of a new book that has just come out, and it's called Batik, Traces Through Time, Batik Collections in the National Museum, or the Napsturk Museum, which is actually in Czechoslovakia, in Prague. Fiona, you have spent your entire life involved in Indonesian material culture. Can you tell me, how did a young English girl or woman end up in South Sumatra in Jambi? How did you decide to go there?
I was actually teaching in a college in England, and I had been teaching there for 9 years. I was teaching students who were going off to do interesting things, and then off they went to do interesting things at the end of the course, and then came a new lot, and I was doing the same thing year after year and watching these people going off and doing interesting things. And one of my students went off to do Japanese studies and spent a year in Japan, and I thought, this isn't fair. Here I am stuck in Kent.
Yes.
And I thought, and there was a reorganisation at the college as well, and I thought, time to go on an adventure.
Yeah.
So I looked around. Yeah, when I was a very small child, we lived in Malaya.
And
I see. So I'm sure that was part
Yes.
of it, the attraction of that area.
Right.
And there was this opportunity in Sumatra,
Yes.
training English teachers in the University of Jambi, and there was somebody who was already there, and he said, oh, this is a wonderful place. I spend my spare time pounding spices and shopping for exotic fruits in the market and so on and so forth.
Right.
And it sounded wonderful, and I thought, right, I will apply for that, and I did. And when I got there, of course, he said he was just desperate for company, but it was wonderful. It was.
Oh, I can imagine. It sounds very evocative. Most people in the world haven't even heard of Jambi, but to end up in South Sumatra. Could you speak Malay at the time?
No, I couldn't. No.
Right.
But I was sent on a course,
Right.
6-week course.
Right.
And I actually learnt enough to get by in the market and on the bus and that sort of thing.
Yes.
And then when you're teaching English, the whole trick is to speak English to your students all the time.
Indeed.
So it took actually quite a long time for me to get my Malay or Indonesian.
That's an interesting point.
Up to
I lived in Jakarta for a couple of years, and I had the best intentions of learning Indonesian perfectly and so on. And I found that almost every Indonesian I came across did not want me to speak Indonesian to them. They wanted me to speak English so they could learn English.
Yes.
Even my driver, everyone. It was kind of frustrating. So you're there for. How old were you when you first went there?
That's a difficult. I was not a young person. I'm trying to remember. I think I might have been in my 30s.
Okay,
I was
right.
in my 30s,
right.
late 30s.
And then after Jambi, you came back to the UK, and then you did a PhD on. What was your PhD? What was your doctorate thesis on?
My doctorate thesis was on the batiks of Jambi.
Right.
And I had got interested in batik initially as a hobby while I was in Jambi. Because there wasn't much to do. Nice girls didn't go out in the evening.
And you being a nice girl, of course.
I had to. I had to behave.
Yes.
Because you are sort of representing
Yes.
your your culture in a way.
Mm-hmm.
When on my way back, I visited somebody who said they had some Jambi Batik, and they showed it to me, and I thought, that's not Jambi Batik.
Right.
And so I went to the V&A to see if I could find more out, and it was there that it was suggested to me by the curator that I might want to take my studies a bit further, because I'd read so many contradictory statements about one statement about Jambi Batik in the book was that you could tell batik from Jambi by its characteristic red colour, and another statement said if the batik's got red in it, it's not from Jambi.
Oh gosh.
So I thought, so that was actually my starting point.
Yeah, there's a role for you.
How did this come about?
Yes.
What's the truth of it?
Yes.
And
well, I mean, it's an
time.
important contribution you've made also, because when we think about batik, we think Java, always Java, Java, Java.
Mm-hmm.
And is it East Coast Java or West Coast? You know, it's all of that. People forget about the coastal batiks of Sumatra.
Yeah. And also Madura is another area that does wonderful batik and rarely gets mentioned.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. So in that regard, you then set about turning yourself into probably the world authority on Jambi batiks.
Yes, probably.
Yes,
and it sort of grew because I think I sort of scoped out how many chapters I was going to do, and then somebody said to me, so presumably you're writing about the calligraphy batiks. And I said, I hadn't been intending to, and they said, well, if you don't do it, who else is going to do it?
Right.
And I started looking into that then because there's a whole story which is in my book actually about how calligraphy batiks were always assumed to come from Cirebon.
Yes, true.
And then, but they are discovered in lots of different places, and then gradually you find evidence that they were made elsewhere.
And so the PhD, the thesis was then, as you just mentioned, was turned into a book. Is that correct? Or?
No, it wasn't actually. The thesis remained sort of as it was.
Right.
I've published probably most of the chapters in other places in one form or another.
Right.
And I think Jambi Batik was thought of at the time, and it still is rather a rarefied subject.
Yes.
And of course, because I came from Jambi, I always think of myself as coming from Jambi, because I was a Jambi specialist, I wasn't terribly interested in Javanese batik, but I had to work on it a bit, obviously, because that's what was around and available to research. And then gradually I got drawn into looking at Javanese batik as well. And so this book, which has just come out,
yes, this is the book which is on the collection in the museum in Prague.
Yes, that's right.
What's the name of the museum? It's
a Naprostek.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you said that. Yes.
It's part of the National Museum. It's the part that looks at, I suppose, Oriental and African collections. Yes, I've actually been to the museum. It's in the old part of Prague, and it's lovely. And it's quite a discovery, because you go to Prague thinking I'm here for Prague things, and very quickly you get sucked into the sort of Indonesia, Africa type museum, which you totally don't expect to find. Yeah.
So your book has just been published by the museum, and in fact I've got a copy right here on my lap. And but you've contributed to other books, and you've done other books. But of course, you're best known for your role with the Horniman Museum here in London. And so, tell me, how did you get that position? Because you were the deputy keeper of what was the
deputy keeper of anthropology with responsibility for the Asian collections.
Indeed, yes.
Well, after my PhD, I carried on at the University of Hull on the staff for a while, and then for various reasons, I mean, the department in Hull was going to be moved to Leeds. There was a question mark over what was going to happen to it, and so I was sort of looking around, and I had been helping the curator there with the Southeast Asia Museum in the University of Hull. They had their own collection which was used for teaching. And so I started looking for museum jobs, and the one at the Horniman came up.
Right.
And I applied for it and found myself
just
responsible
like that.
for these.
Right.
Well, I applied for one or two other jobs first, but I'm really glad I didn't get them because the Horniman was brilliant. Yeah.
Well, I guess the Horniman is a smaller museum, and so you would have been more empowered, and perhaps compared to if you'd been lost into the vortex that might be the British Museum or something like that, you would have had more of I suppose, like your own fiefdom, your own area, would you say?
Yeah. Yes, there is definitely that about it. I think it's quite nice being, I suppose, a larger fish in a smaller pond. And
less bureaucracy, I guess, and you can make decisions more quickly, perhaps.
You could back then. I don't know what it's like now,
right.
But back then, yes. And lots of opportunities to curate exhibitions. So if you're in a big museum, you probably aren't able to do that often.
I think that's right. I think it's very political as well. You've got to fight your way to the top and fight your way for rooms and then you might be scheduled for an exhibition that you can put on, which is great for your CV, but it might be in 4 or 5 years' time.
Yes.
Whereas I guess you were more. I went to some of your exhibitions at the Horniman, and it always struck me as, the Horniman has a lot of things and it covers a lot of areas, but for me, the Indonesia focus was always very strong. And I think it's because you were there driving it. Yes, it was entirely due to you. And so it shows that what you could do in a smaller museum like that.
Yes, but, well, I think I was, one of the reasons I got the job was my interest in textiles, and they had already planned a gallery's perhaps too big a word for it, but a textile space, and they wanted to have exhibitions which would change every year, and so I couldn't do Indonesia every year. So I did exhibitions. Well, there was a Cambodia one. We did a Romania one. Lots of. I had to learn about lots of new things, which is a lovely thing to do.
Yes.
I had to go to places. Which was also very interesting, to research them. And
the Horniman's one of those museums in the UK that has a lot of old colonial pieces and so on, and so you've got a lot of excellent, provenance material to work with.
Lots of excellent, provenance material. I hesitate over the word colonial, which has got all sorts of connotations at the moment.
Yeah.
And Frederick Horniman was a Quaker, so there's very little from a military background at all, and an awful lot of the material there was given to people who were working overseas, and when you've been given things and your children aren't interested in them, you can't sell them, you can't throw them away, and they get offered to museums, and that gift is preserved. We were actually thinking about doing an exhibition called The Gift, about how objects are so often imbued with that aspect of being a gift and treasured for that reason, because they have all these memories and connotations of friendships made overseas very often, and then partings.
Were there items because of the Quaker connection as well? Was that did things come? I know, like for example, in Germany, there's a lot of things that have come to museums, say from Sumatra, from Batak areas, because of the Lutheran proselytizing type. Is there a similar sort of thing with the Quakers?
Not a lot, but Frederick Horniman's father was perhaps a stronger Quaker than Frederick. In order to get anywhere, you had to not be a Quaker in Victorian England. You couldn't, for example, he became an MP, he wouldn't have been able to be an MP as a Quaker. But the father had established a mission in China, in the place where they were getting the tea from. And there were missionaries who would bring back things. When they were on furlough in the UK, they had to give talks, and so they would bring things back to illustrate the talks. Actually very similar to what I do. I bring things back to illustrate talks.
Yes,
and then those
indeed.
ended up in the museum.
Right.
And they're particularly interesting because they've been chosen to illustrate the culture out there, wherever,
Right.
India or China or
Right.
Sri
So,
Lanka.
since leaving the Horniman, you've been working as an independent researcher and author, and you've written quite a lot. And this new book, which has just come out, called Batik: Traces Through Time, the Batik collections in the National Museum and the Napastek Museum in Prague. It's a lovely looking book and hardcover. How were you approached to write this book, given that they're in Czechoslovakia and so on? How did they know to come to you?
Oh, it's a fairly long story, but I'll try to keep it short.
Okay.
I was convening a panel at a conference in Naples, and you send out a call for papers, and one of the people who offered a paper for this panel was the Asia curator at the Napastek Museum.
Okay.
So she came and she gave a presentation about a woman who had collected in Indonesia, actually. And it was a brief presentation because Dagmar's area was actually India, not Indonesia.
Right.
But we kind of made friends then, and then I was invited to go over to Prague to look at their collections, and then she came over to help with cataloguing some of our Indian collections, and so this sort of collaboration developed. So I had already done another book with the Napastek, in fact about the collections of this woman who had made a collection in Indonesia, and then this one was a labour of love, because this is really what I wanted to do.
Yes, this is your thing.
This is my. It's not exactly my swan song, but it sort of feels. No. But it was just such a fabulous opportunity, because they have good batik collections which haven't been researched before, haven't been published before.
Right.
But I was also able to use that as a framework to explore lots of questions in batik which had not been answered properly in previous publications.
Right. And so with their batik, because you're coming across an entirely new batik collection for the first time that's almost never been published, were there many surprises? And also, did you find, were there many Jambi batiks?
I was surprised to find that there were
Jambi
batiks.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yes, because the Jambi batiks are quite unusual in the sort of batik collection world. There were some batiks of types which I hadn't come across before.
Ah, wonderful.
So yes, that was great.
And tell me about the preservation. How is it, and has it been looked after, or how would you describe it?
It has been looked after. It's so they were all rolled up and wrapped and stored.
Okay.
To that extent, in a good dry environment. They didn't have state-of-the-art storage facilities, but pretty good, I would say. And because they have vast collections, they've got 1,500 carpets, for example.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So the batik had really not been brought out, and
right. That would have been quite amazing, because you probably would have been one of the first people to see it for decades.
I would say so. Yes.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah. How marvellous to have material that's so well provenanced. Would have been quite exciting.
Yes, and you're right. They're pretty good at documenting, kind of in a way I kind of associate with Germans, sort of cataloguing everything very correctly.
Yes.
And they were very much influenced
by
that kind of culture. Yes, European culture.
Yes.
Whereas I don't know. It felt that it seems to me that British museums, the older collections, are not as well documented.
I think
and
you're right.
certainly, yeah.
Yes.
They kind of come across. But there were things actually at the Naprostek which they didn't know where they'd come from.
Yes.
A few. But the majority of them, I think they did.
I think you're right with the museums in the UK when it comes to older material, and you still see it online. You come across and you can tell that's what the curator was told at the time.
Yes.
And someone who vaguely bought something in a marketplace in, I don't know, Kuala Lumpur or something, comes back and says, oh, well, I was told it was this.
Yes.
And then they would recall that as that's what it is, when in fact it's something that might have been traded in from Burma.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with Malaya. And I find that all the time.
Yes, and no museum can have an expert in everything.
No.
And so they kind of have to initially rely on what they're told.
Yes.
And then, and one of the joys of working at the Horniman was finding things and researching and thinking, is this really what it says it is?
Yeah.
And if you have the time, so I would try to catalogue a certain number of objects per week.
Right.
I rarely hit my target, but it was important to spend at least a day a week
Yes.
down in the storage, just sorting things out. Because
How many Batiks do you think they have?
At the Naprostek?
Yes.
I think around about 175.
Okay.
So
Right.
not a huge collection,
Right.
but a good collection. I
And
would
then there's
say.
also a lot of other
Interesting
Indonesian material as well,
Oh, yes,
which was the
yes.
subject of the first book you did with the museum.
Yes.
And again, that it was. I think that was a lady who went there early on. What, about 1910, 1920?
No, she was out there in the 30s.
Oh, was she? Okay. So this lady, she was there in the 30s, and yes, she was.
She was recently divorced.
Okay.
And suddenly found herself with a whole load of money and nothing to do. And she was an artist and a journalist, and we suspect a spy. And off she went on a round-the-world voyage.
Right.
And she got as far as Bali, and she got kind of stuck.
Yes, Bali was sort of, everyone went to Bali in the 1930s, Charlie Chaplin, and it was a
That's
very
right,
popular
yes,
place.
yes,
And then the
yes.
whole local art scene took off, and
Yeah.
very interesting period
Yeah.
for Indonesia.
Yeah.
Right.
And because she was Czech, and the Germans had invaded the Czech lands, and it took the Japanese a bit of time to work out whether she was friend or foe, but in the
I
end
see.
they decided she was foe.
Ah.
So she was put in a camp and everything, and that was really luckily her collections survived.
Okay.
She had put some into storage and some had already gone back.
So she was interned on Bali.
She was interned on Java.
Oh, Java, okay,
Yes,
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, I think Rudolf Bonnet was the painter. He was interned on Bali.
Yeah.
Quite a few of these expats, these arts-related people were, trapped there for the war, and then often they stayed on after.
She was not treated well. Some of the things I read were pretty ghastly.
Right.
But she did survive.
I know a lot of European
Yeah.
women end up being comfort women. She wasn't one of those, I take it, or
As far as we know, not.
thankfully, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, she got back, and she got back to a Czech Republic, or was it by then Czech Republic, which was then newly socialist, which meant that all private property from people who had any money had been confiscated, and the Naprostek has things in its collections which had been confiscated from castles, etc. And it's been fascinating researching their collections, partly because of that.
Yes.
So a lot of the confiscated property, you're not sure who it's confiscated from.
Right.
So yeah, but anyway, her collections, of course, she wrote a lot about. So
Right. It is fascinating because when you go to, we're very used to what we have in the UK and in the West, so-called West, and it's when you go to these museums in Eastern Europe that you come across very strange things, things that we, and in quantities that we never saw, and it's often to do with communist relations. And I noticed for example, in St. Petersburg, a lot of Mongolian items and things that have been given as gifts and things that we just don't see here. And in Poland, that was the same. In Warsaw, the National Museum there had extraordinary things, but it was all to do with bilateral relations between communist regimes. And so therefore in the West we missed out on being given these things and presented these gifts and so on. So it means that when you do go to these places, you do see often things that you've actually never really seen before.
It's funny you should say that though, because the Horniman has got a collection of Mongolian material,
Right.
which was a result of my predecessor as the Asia curator being invited to go out. And the regime there presented a whole lot of material.
That's very fortunate.
So and there's quite a lot actually at the Horniman from other Eastern Bloc countries, because I think the Horniman, particularly Romania, the Horniman curator, who was German, had an interest in places like Poland and Romania and so on. I think, he was from the eastern side of
I
Germany.
see. He could speak the language as well, I guess, and had the connections.
Yeah. And so, there's a lot of very good material that came over. Interesting.
So what would you like to do next? Is there some big book that you think, oh gosh, I've always been wanting to write this, or someone should write this, and maybe it might have to be you? Is there something like that, do you think?
Well, I have got some things that I'm working on, which are not a big book, but they're more detailed, smaller studies of small groups of mainly Indonesian textiles at the Naprasek, where there is research material that has never been explored that will help to elucidate these particular objects. But if somebody would wave a magic wand, I would like to write a book on Indonesian textiles. Yes.
Like a big one, or like all cultures across Indonesia.
I have an idea. I have an idea for what I'd like to do. I just need the collection to.
Okay. To focus on. So
yes. And
do you know of a collection like that?
Possibly.
Right.
There's something in the wings that may or may not come to fruition.
Because there are obviously some very well-known books. Thomas Murray has just written a very big one, and
I wrote a little.
You did actually. You contributed to that. You did indeed.
Yes.
And then, of course, there's the early one, which is Robin Maxwell's big book.
Yes.
And so, do you think there's actually more to be said?
Yes.
Yes. That's good to know.
Yes, because the books which have come out so far have been the material's been approached from a certain angle generally, although Robin's is quite unusual, and I think there's room for more thematic, it's almost thematic, her approach, which I think is brilliant, and in fact I sort of took that approach when I wrote the Arts of Southeast Asia book.
Yes.
Because it's chronological as well, but it's also thematic, and that's what I would like to do. I'd like to write one that's more thematic.
Right. So when can we expect publication?
Well, I'm waiting to hear from somebody who approached me to see whether that's actually going to happen or not.
Okay, marvellous.
And also what precisely my role would be.
Yes.
But then if that doesn't happen, then I'm sitting here waiting for somebody to who's got a wonderful collection that needs to be written about.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
No, it's quite addictive writing books. I can speak from experience. I suppose it's a bit like having a baby. You swear you'd never do it again, and then you just do it again.
I sort of started thinking about ideas and themes a few years ago now, and that sort of didn't happen.
Right.
But I've carried on doing the work.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So
therefore, you just need a chapter outline, and then you've got the research. You can just slot it in. This is how we do books. No, I think it's we often do books because you can, and you feel almost obliged, and you think, well, I've got something to say. I've noticed this, and you feel quite driven. And these days, you've got to make sure that you really sort of disengage from Netflix. To actually get a book done, because there are so many distractions now. but it's tough, and but it's a marvelous thing. Once it's done, it's such a legacy and such a marvelous project. And the funny thing is with a book, I always think that you often think that once it's done, it will sort of be you, and it will be. It's hard to explain this, but it takes on a life of its own, and it sort of goes off on its own orbit. And it's almost as if you didn't write it in some respects, because it has its own life and it's quite divorced from you. It's a strange thing. So it's quite a fascinating thing. If for people listening, if you've never done a book, I can tell you it's not what you think it's going to be once it's published. But anyway, fabulous to talk with you, Fiona, and really good to know that you're thinking about more writing.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you for inviting me, and I've enjoyed our conversation.
Very, very welcome.
You have been listening to the World Art Now podcast in association with Michael Backman Limited. To hear more, visit worldartnow.com.